Hi, I'm Rochelle Travers, and this is the Standards Tech and Science Daily Podcast. Coming up, why you might struggle to read your dog's facial expressions. Now, let's get into it.
I can see ZNKVC.
That's the sound of 91-year-old Cecil John Farley receiving an eye test, after making history as the first patient in England to receive an artificial cornea. John faced a year-long wait for sight-saving surgery after a human cornea transplant failed, but his surgeon offered him the chance to skip the queue by using an artificial one. Frimley Health NHS Foundation Trust consultant ophthalmologist Thomas Poole was the surgeon who performed the operation.
So he has had a failed corneal graft, and his cornea, which is the clear window at the front of the eye, is cloudy and waterlogged, or was. And the options are, he'd had lots of previous surgeries, very difficult eye to graft, and my concern was we could use a human cornea for him again, but that's got a high risk of failure. And so there was this opportunity to use this new corneal implant, which acts like an inner corneal graft.
Mr. Poole says the new technique may eventually become the norm, and gives people on long transplant waiting lists hope of an effective and speedy procedure.
So John has had this artificial cornea put in February, and clinically we can already see that his cornea is so much less swollen than it was, improving in shape and improving in clarity.
John is already seeing big improvements with his vision, and hopes this new option could help other people too.
Well, it's quite pleased really. I'm getting on in life, so if it fails on me, any younger person won't probably have to put up with it.
The new artificial cornea, called EndoArt, was created by EyeYon Medical. Only 200 have been implanted worldwide to date, including John's. Next. A new artificial intelligence tool can rapidly rule out heart attacks in people waiting in A&E, and it could eventually have huge benefits for the NHS.
When patients with a suspected heart attack go into hospital, they're assessed by a physician, and that's usually a doctor in A&E, and they'll have a number of blood tests, including a troponin. Troponin is a marker of heart muscle damage. Now, if that troponin level is low enough, we can say, okay, that patient has had a very low likelihood of having a heart attack, and we can rule them out.
That's Roberto Dario Sesia, but he goes by Dario. He's a PhD student at the National Heart and Lung Institute at Imperial College London, and lead researcher behind the groundbreaking technology known as Rapid RO.
Really often that troponin level isn't low enough. So that patient will require further assessment. And after many hours and either a repeat blood test or multiple repeat tests, the clinicians can then be reassured that they haven't had a heart attack. And this obviously leads to patients spending increased times in the NHS. They'll take up hospital beds and possibly even admission and overnight stay.
Rapid RO was trained using data from over 60,000 patients across the UK, and then tested on more than 35,000 patients. It works by combining the data from the initial troponin blood test with other patient information collected during hospital admission, which is then analysed by the algorithm. Patients are then identified as either being in a very low risk group for having a heart attack or not. Rapid RO was able to successfully rule out heart attacks in 36% of patients, compared to 27% ruled out by troponin blood testing alone.
Now, we'd love to do a prospective study, for example, where we would look at how the model would do with live data coming in and being refreshed every day. And then perhaps the next step is to do some sort of clinical trial where the algorithm is used as a decision support tool in an actual clinical setting.
Now, research suggests that fresh water, which is essential for life, was actually present on Earth 500 million years earlier than previously thought. Researchers from Curtin University School of Earth and Planetary Sciences in Australia measured the oxygen compositions of zircon, a mineral that formed in some rocks that made up the Earth's early continental landmasses some 3.2 to 4.2 billion years ago. They found preserved evidence that the hot molten rocks they grew in came into contact with water during their formation. The findings challenged the existing theory that Earth was completely covered by ocean 4 billion years ago. Let's go to the ads. Coming up, warning over drinking alcohol then napping on flights, and why you might struggle to read your dog's facial expressions. Welcome back. A study has found that drinking alcohol and then napping on flights could be bad for your heart. Research from the Institute of Aerospace Medicine at the German Aerospace Centre in Cologne has found the combination of in-flight alcohol and cabin pressure at cruising altitude may put strain on sleeping passengers' hearts. They discovered that when people fall asleep after drinking alcohol at those low air pressures during flights, blood oxygen levels drop and heart rates increase, even in those who are healthy and young. Writing in the journal Thorax, the researchers said passengers with heart problems have an increased risk of aggravation of symptoms due to the decreased cabin pressure of cruising altitude, which is amplified during sleep. Alcohol, which is often consumed on board, has similar effects. And finally, now, many dog owners think their pets have incredibly expressive faces, but it turns out that canines have actually lost a lot of their facial expressions when compared with their wolf ancestors. Researchers from Durham University used a dog facial action coding system to analyse video recordings of captive wolves and domestic dogs. The researchers identified 9 distinct emotional states: anger, anxiety, curiosity, fear, friendliness, happiness, interest, joy, and surprise. That could all be predicted based on wolves' facial movements with 71% accuracy. However, the accuracy dropped to only 65% for domestic dogs across different breeds. The team suggests that domestic dogs may compensate for limited facial expressions by vocalising more than wolves during social interactions. You're up to date. Come back at 4 p.m. for the Standard podcast for all the latest news and analysis. Tech and Science Daily will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. See you then.